Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. If I told you that I'm holding two mechanical chronographs, with one being a true space watch from a brand that had the first watch worn in space, while the other offers great value for money, and asked you to identify which is which, I would most likely get three different answers. The first answer would be from people who are not into watches but know a thing or two about space exploration. They would identify Omega as the space watch. The second answer would come from people who are somewhat into watches. They would say Omega would be the space watch if I had the manual wind professional, as the one I'm holding in my hands, the automatic triple date, was never used in space, and in a way, they would be right. But then, there would be a third answer from people who are so deeply into watches that it can be considered a mental condition. These guys would say that this Omega does offer great value for money, but this Soviet watch is a true space watch, and they would be completely right. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sturmanskie 31659, one of the best kept secrets when it comes to military and space watches. A watch that was issued to Soviet Air Force pilots and cosmonauts and never offered to the public, at least not in this form and with this movement. But first, a few words about Sturmanskie, which translates to navigator in English. The name has been in use since 1949, and throughout most of its history, a brand made exclusively for Soviet military pilots. Meaning you couldn't simply buy these, as the only way to get one was to graduate from a Soviet pilot school. Then you'd receive it as a graduation present together with your diploma, to serve you as you're serving your country. This fact makes Sturmanskie incredibly cool and very unique in the watch world, as one really had to prove himself to earn one. One such pilot was Yuri Gagarin, that ended up being the first man in space in 1961. Strapped to his wrist was a Sturmanskie, making it the first watch worn in space, 1 full year before the more famous Omega Speedmaster. That watch used a manual wind 17-joule movement that had the hacking ability, differentiating itself from civilian watches offered to the public under different brand names. Sturmanskie was replaced by the now famous Strela in 1959, featuring a column wheel chronograph 3017, like the Omega Speedmaster 321. And just like the Speedmaster that later switched to the more robust and simpler cam-actuated 861 movement, Soviets switched to the 3133 with the Okean model for the Soviet Navy and Sturmanskie models for the Air Force. 3133 is a manual wind movement based on the Swiss Valjoux 7734, from whom the Soviets bought the manufacturing equipment. It beats at 21,600 bph and has a 30-minute chronograph function. What it lacks is the hacking ability. This will change in 1986 when this model was introduced. The name 31659 was actually the designation of the new movement used. It was basically a 3133 modified with the hacking ability, bringing Sturmanskie back to its roots. It has stayed in production until 1992 and was issued exclusively to Soviet military pilots, meaning that a lot of these watches were worn by nuclear bomber pilots, who can be considered the most powerful people on Earth, as they had the ability to destroy cities and even countries at a flick of a switch. Luckily, none of them did. This watch was also used by cosmonauts and went to space, just like its older brother from 1961. It was also a watch worn by the first space tourist, a Japanese journalist Toyohiro Akiyama, whose broadcasting agency paid $28 million to send him to Mir space station, from where he did a series of broadcasts back to Earth. My guess is that he probably got the watch from one of the cosmonauts that escorted him. The watch itself is a beauty. It comes in a stainless steel cushion case with polished sides and beautiful radial brushing on top. The diameter from 9 to 6 is 40 mm, not including the crown, while the lug-to-lug is a very short 44 mm, making this a great choice for people with smaller wrists. The thickness is 13 mm, but the watch wears thinner, as a lot of that thickness comes from the acrylic crystal that was domed on earlier models and boxed on later ones, like this one. The dial came in 3 variants: turquoise, dark gray, and light gray like this one. The watch also features a fixed outer bezel with a loomed pip at 12 o'clock, so the pilots would always know how the watch is oriented. The chronograph and main time are separated with proper color coding, making them easily distinguishable. The main time is shown using black hands, while the chronograph is displayed using red ones. The whole design is very clean and legible, while still looking lively thanks to the colors used. It is one of my favorite looking chronograph dials. The caseback uses the same system as the Amphibia, meaning you have an outer ring that presses on the caseback as you screw it in. So this gasket gets compressed without the shearing effect that regular screw-in casebacks have. Because of this, opening and closing the watch doesn't damage the gasket, making these changes unnecessary. The watch comes with 18mm lugs and looks great on pretty much any strap you put it on. But I personally prefer black or gray nylon, as I believe it fits the military history of the watch the best. As I said at the beginning, this version with this movement was exclusive to Soviet pilots, but there were other models offered to the general public, like the round 31659, but most common watches found on sale are the civilian versions of this model, that look pretty much the same, but come with the non-hacking 3133 movement and cases made of chrome-plated brass instead of stainless steel, as stainless steel was used only on military versions. These are easily recognized by the crown at 9 o'clock, as they featured a rotating internal bezel. These should generally cost less than the military versions, but some sellers will advertise them as military issued to get a higher price. Unfortunately, there are some sellers who will create Franken models using cases without their crown and placing 3133 movements inside. So you end up paying a premium for a military model but end up having a Franken watch. Because of this, it is important to ask for movement and opened caseback pictures, so you can look for traces of chrome wearing out and check whether the movement is really the hacking version. Seeing the 31659 inscription on the bridges is not enough, as some sellers will put them inside 3133 movements to mislead you. What you have to look for is this little prong around the crown area, as that is the hacking lever, something that will be missing on the regular 3133. I will put a picture of both side by side so you can see the difference. If the movement has the prong and there are no signs of brass showing on the case threads, you can at least be sure you're getting the original military issued model. But you still can't be sure that it wasn't cobbled together from several military watches. To eliminate that too, you need to dig deeper, as the Point logo on the bridges has to match one of the possible orientations of the serial numbers used. And all that has to match the dial shade possible for that age. So as you can see, buying these is very complicated, and it will discourage most people, making them give up and go for something simpler to buy. But I personally love the complexity of buying one of these, because just like the pilots who got these originally, it's not enough to simply have money for one. You still have to work hard and earn one by learning everything needed to purchase an all-original model. This gives you a feeling of accomplishment, and you feel like you deserved it once you finally get one in your hands. And once you do, you will be holding a true part of military and space exploration history from a brand that once beat Omega in the race to space. Well, this completes this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe by pressing this button right here, and until the next video, bye.